Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Dave the Piper, and I'm wondering today if you've ever heard of Robert Burns. I'll bet you have, though you may not have known it. You see, he was the author of the famous song, Auld Lang Syne, which is sung every year on New Year's Day around the world. I refer to him as the most famous poet you've never heard of. And I thought it would be nice to do a quick little video focused just on Robert Burns. Burns was a Scottish man born in 1759 in Alloway, Scotland, and a man of humble means. He was the son of a poor tenant farmer, and he was a farmer himself for much of his life. And though his life on earth was very short, only 37 years, he became a prolific writer and a collector of poems and songs, both in the Scots language and in English. And by the time he died, he published over 550 songs and poems. He was just prolific. He led a very interesting life and wrote about things that every person can relate to: romance, politics, patriotism, music, nature, humanitarianism, and the brotherhood of mankind. He was a product of his times, a period known as the Scottish Enlightenment, and many of his ideas resonate and continue to this day in cultures, governments, and even through modern-day musicians. There are almost 60 statues of Robert Burns around the world, and the first one to be erected outside of Scotland was in 1880 in Central Park, New York City. It's very close to the Central Park Zoo, so next time you go there, be sure to go and see the Robert Burns statue. And there are scores and scores of publications that have been written not only about Burns, but most of them are compilations of his poetry. Here's just a very small one. I mean, these are just select poems, obviously not 550 in there. This one I found in a little tiny bookstore called Baines Books and Coffee in Scottsville, Virginia. This one is a treasure to me. A dear friend of mine gave this to me last year for my birthday. This was published by the Oxford University Press and is, as near as I can tell, a complete collection of all of Burns's poems. There are also a lot of books like this that are written about Burns night suppers, and I'll talk about those in just a second. Look, there are far better accounts of Burns's life out there on the internet than I could hope to provide or do justice to. I can't claim that I'm a Burns scholar, but look, I encourage you to check out the life of Burns through a simple internet search, YouTube videos, and the like. Instead, what I want to do right now is let me tell you how Burns became relevant to me, because though he wasn't a piper himself, it was through bagpiping that I really first heard of him and got to know him. The first Burns song that I heard was at the age of 11 at the School of Scottish Arts in Banner Elk, North Carolina. And the song is called Ye Banks and Braes o' Bonnie Doon. The banks and hillsides of the River Doon is what he was referring to, Bonnie River Doon. And it's a heartfelt song of love gained and lost. It's beautiful and a song practically everyone can relate to, for we've all been in love and perhaps lost that love as well. Then about 15 years ago, a friend of mine returned from working a few years in Edinburgh, where she had been introduced by Scottish friends to their annual Burns night suppers. And she decided to continue the tradition back here in the States in her own home. She needed a piper, and thus she asked me, and I was introduced to the custom of Burns night suppers, which interestingly began from Burns's close friends back in around, just like a few years after he died. And they have continued to be held by Scottish people and people around the world ever since. So it was really a tremendous evening of remembering and celebrating the life and work of Robert Burns, and really all things Scottish. And for 7 years, I piped for her Burns suppers until she decided to stop having them. And so then I picked up the mantle, and I've been hosting Burns night suppers every January in my own house ever since. Let me tell you a little bit about Burns night suppers. They're usually held in late January because Robert Burns's birthday was on the 25th of January. And they range from being grand formal affairs like banquets, or as I prefer, small house parties with just a few friends. They all have in common a running order or an agenda, which include a meal of Scottish food, toasts from lads to lasses and vice versa, an immortal memory, as they call it, which is a summary of Robert Burns's biography. It usually includes singing of Robert Burns songs and readings of his poetry and such. But they all begin with piping in the haggis, in which a bagpiper strikes up the pipes and leads a march around the venue with someone behind carrying hot haggis in a trenchard. And when they come to a close, the trenchard is set down. The tune is usually Scotland the Brave or some such march. And after this, Robert Burns's whimsical poem, To a Haggis, is delivered in praise of the haggis. It's an address to the haggis. And so it's really a lot of fun. And what makes each year uniquely fun at these suppers is that everyone is asked to contribute something, whether it's preparing Scottish dish or providing some of the entertainment in the form of poetry or songs. And it's always fun to see and hear what people come up with. I encourage you to host one yourself. Just do a search out on the internet for Burns Night Suppers, and you'll learn all about them. And they're a great, great deal of fun. In 2019, my daughter and I traveled to Scotland and visited Burns Country in Ayrshire, Scotland, just south of Glasgow on the coast near the town of Ayr. And we got to see the area in which he grew up. We saw the Burns Museum, the cottage in which he lived, which is still there, the River Dune, the Alloway Kirk, and even one of his favorite pubs now known as the Tam O'Shanter Inn. So be sure to go there the next time you go. It's well worth the time to go visit Ayrshire. So I'll finish up by talking a little bit about the song Auld Lang Syne. The average American doesn't know what the words Auld Lang Syne mean, even though we sing it every New Year's Eve, or I guess technically in the New Year, right, at midnight. But it's Old Scots for, if you were to translate it directly, it would mean old long times, or more idiomatically, times long past, or times long since. Pull it up sometime on the internet and look up a translation of the entire poem. It's a beautiful, beautiful poem and song. And you'll see that it's basically a song about old friends getting together once again for a drink to celebrate their long history and continuing friendship. But as I've mentioned in earlier videos, not all songs sound good on bagpipes because of the limited range of the chanter, of only 9 notes. And unfortunately, Auld Lang Syne is just one of those songs. It has been adapted. You can play an adaptation of it on the bagpipes, and I have, but it just doesn't sound right because the song goes outside the range of the chanter, and so you have to kind of flip back and forth between going up high and then you have to flip to a lower octave. I just don't think it sounds good, so I'm not going to play it. Instead, I'm going to play on the small pipes Burns's famous song, A Man's a Man for All That. It's also known as Is There for Honest Poverty. Another great poem I encourage you to look up. Don't be intimidated by the Scots words. Instead, make it a challenge to learn what each of those words mean. It's really a beautiful poem about the equality of human beings. This will be Robert Burns's famous tune, A Man's a Man for All That, on the McCallum C small pipes. Happy Burns Night.